Well, when I always say in the morning, what a beautiful day it is. What a beautiful day it is, Ken. It's one of those days when, I tell you, the best time of the morning is early in the morning when the sun's just coming up and you can walk around the garden with a coffee and enjoy the plants. All the plants are happy because it's so mild and cool.
The temperatures are nice, right?
Beautiful.
It's lovely in the morning. And then, today, I think once you hit the afternoon, you're going to need to be under some sort of cover or some protection.
Well, unless you're a born and raised Okanaganite, because nothing to it.
Yeah, wow. It's going to be, I think, only 33 or something today, 40 or 30, 33, 34. But tomorrow, 37 degrees Celsius or maybe 40. Yikes.
Just don't work too hard. Don't do physical work. That's back in the day when we were landscaping and that we would get up and start like 6:30 in the morning and finish about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, then hit the lake.
Yeah.
Let's do the tips and plants of the week. About time we did that. But where's the tips and plants? My tip of the week is this. Clematis makes a fantastic cut flower. Who would have known? It lasted so long. I'll talk about that because I got a honorable mention for my clematis at the show last week, and we'll talk about all those prizes and whatnot that went out. The tip of the week is that, and my plant of the week is the Hydrangea arborescens, Annabelle et al. And all the different arborescents, the new ones that are out. You can name them. I can't. Okay.
There's so many different types, that's for sure. And it's funny. I've got a similar one there as well today. But my tip of the week is that remember that with this extra hot weather that we're having, that the plants can't chase the shade. They are just stuck out there in the sun. And especially plants that are newly planted, you're going to have to give them a little extra special hand watering. If they're newly planted, even if you have irrigation, it's still sometimes not quite enough just to get them through. So just a direct shot straight into the root ball. That's the way to go, and that just gets them through this little bump here in the road. All right, now my plant of the week this week is also a hydrangea, which is the mountain hydrangea, which is called Hydrangea serrata. These guys are actually a lot more deer resistant than all the other types of hydrangeas, and they grow in both sun or shade and bloom on new growth, so they're a little bit more reliable for blooming. So we really like this whole group, and there are many, many new varieties coming out. One called Bluebird, which is always one of the older varieties, and newer ones like Twist and Shout. There's a few different varieties out there. But anyway, those Hydrangea serratas are far more deer resistant than the other varieties, so I like that. All right, that's my tips and plants for this week. Remember to check growercoach.com and Grower Coach on YouTube.
Golly, Ken, we're always looking for deer-resistant plants, and that's cool. So you say somewhat.
No, I've never seen them get even hardly nibbled. I don't know what it is. How I discovered that was that I had this hydrangea planting at a property up in Vernon, and there were literally herds and herds of deer going through. So I don't know. At the time, it seemed like a lot of hydrangeas were good. So we had a planting where we had about 8 different types of hydrangeas all in this one big planting, and it was shady in the afternoon and sunny in the morning. And it was cool, well irrigated, nice soil, and those plants just thrived for about 3 or 4 years. They were just beautiful, and everything bloomed and bloomed. And then one day, the deer decided to come in and eat them all. and they literally, in one night, I think it was like 2 or 3 deer came in and ate all the hydrangeas. Except for the Hydrangea serrata. And there was only one in the entire planting, and it was right in the middle, surrounded by all these other macrophyllus and whatnot. And they were all completely defoliated from the deer, except that one plant. And I was thinking, I could be onto something.
Something's going on here.
But, thinking about that, the mountain hydrangea is a variety that... there's a lot of new ones coming out now. Some, it's just like everything with the plant world. Is there, new hybrids, new varieties coming out, and there's some really nice ones that are becoming more available. So again, I picked that one just because we just did a planting. Again, it's in an area where it's a little bit deery. I don't know if that's a real term.
Well, I think we should let Mary Fabrice know this. Hopefully you're listening today, Mary.
Yeah. You could try one because she's in a bad spot. Her place is deer central.
Buck and Bambi, she calls them.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah,
it's really tough on people who do enjoy gardening,
boy.
to walk out one day and just look and go, oh, that plant's been devastated.
Yeah. And we live down near the hospital, near on Rhonda Crescent, behind Gushigan there. Mm-hmm. And just 2 days ago, I sent you a picture. Bambi came down the road, and it was a she. She was eating the Sorbus decora across the street, nibbling on it. Yeah. Sorbus decora. Just having a little meal there, and then walked down, sauntered down to the neighbors and started chewing on their roses, and then sauntered down to the next. We were all laughing because rarely do we see deer in our neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hollered across to the neighbor, you got your bow and arrow ready? We could. Oh no, we don't do that. No, that is a bad move.
Deer fencing. Yeah, it is
so cute.
It is a strange thing in Kelowna because it is, Kelowna is a very large city, but the deer live right downtown now. We do see them crossing the streets like where you would never expect them to be, but that's the way it goes.
Well, I want to congratulate the Kelowna Garden Club for putting on such a great show last week. Ken. It was stellar. The turnout was great. The participation of the garden club, all sorts of folks were there looking after things. And, it was a lot of fun. It always is a lot of fun. Great venue. I don't think you could ask for a better venue for a flower show than the Gushigan Gardens. Mm-hmm. Dan Bruce was with us, which was kind of fun. We did the walkabout. He was instrumental in laying out that pathways through the gardens. And I had my display of succulent plants there. And he came up with a great idea. Next year, we're going to have a nice big display of strictly Madagascar plants.
Yeah.
Strictly Madagascars. Alawadias and Pachypodiums and all the different ones. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, there's so many interesting and unusual varieties of plants that do come from Madagascar. So that's a cool idea.
My tip of the week was my clematis. I entered one. I cut that beautiful clematis and I put it in a vase and I entered that. It was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the best clematis there. Mm. But all I got was an honorable mention. Yeah. You know why? Because it had a bud on it. I didn't follow the rules.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have a single flower, no buds. It says right on the rules. Now, obviously, I wasn't reading the rules. Mm. You have to have a single clematis flower, no buds. Mm. But that clematis, I brought it home after the show, and it sat on our patio table, not in full sun, under the shade. Mm-hmm. Just yesterday, the big bloom dropped, but the little guy, the bud, had opened up into a beautiful bloom as well.
Oh, fabulous!
It just said, who would have ever thought clematis as a cut flower in the house, in the bathroom, in a small vase, put a clematis in there. It lasts and lasts and lasts.
Very cool.
And the bud opened up. Better than roses. Like the roses will sometimes open up in the house, but they're touchy.
Roses, it's definitely a varietal thing. Mm-hmm. Some varieties last and some don't. It's just the way it goes. And it's almost luck of the draw when you're purchasing them because you never quite know exactly when they're originally cut. Mm-hmm. But 5 days for a rose would be outstanding, I would say. Mm-hmm. But for clematis to go like at least 7 days, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty impressive.
And of course, it's all on how you handle them too, when you pick them, how you cut them. Using some of the Floralife material in the water is somewhat helpful. There's all sorts of things you can do to keep them happy, but it is also a varietal thing and a species thing. Clematis, I would never have thought. And, of course, there's others that are great. Oh, one more thing before we take a break. I got a first prize. My alliums, those allium blooms, the second bloom of the 3 allium blooms in a mason jar. I got a first prize. I mean, you never know. You never know.
Beautiful. And those are actually onion alliums.
Just
the actual
onion
edible onions.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But you're right. Those were those red Spanish onions that I planted by seed a year ago, February. And I put them in the garden, and they only became small, maybe half-inch to three-quarter-inch bulbs. So I didn't harvest them, of course.
Right.
I took them, and in the fall, I put them into my bed where I have my garlic. Mm-hmm. And they grew this spring like crazy. The tops, and they bloom, but there's no bulb. Just it's a very sort of an oblong bulb.
Yeah. Yeah, you can still chop them up and use
they're
them.
tasty.
They're
you
really
mentioned
good.
you mentioned they have this unique onion taste, and I've been making sandwiches out of them. They're gorgeous. Yeah.
They're a little different once they go into that phase. I find that the flavor is more rich and robust compared to the, a younger onion has definitely got a slightly different
hungry
flavor.
already. I want an onion sandwich.
Oh,
my mother-in-law used to do that when she had a cold. She'd make a bread and butter with lots of onion, raw onion, and eat that baby.
I like that with especially like Walla Wallas.
Yeah.
They're so mild. Yeah. They're just lovely.
You eat them like apples.
Yep.
We're going to take a short break. We invite your calls, 250-862-2525, locally here in Kelowna area, 1-888-780-4273 if you're calling from Victoria or Penticton or anywhere online. We'll be back with The Garden Show after this short break. Well, very soon now, in the next couple of weeks or so, I've been told that the new calendar for the Okanagan Heritage Society, the Historical Society, not the Heritage Society. I always get them confused. The Historical Society is all about happenings and history and what went on in the Okanagan and whatnot. The Central Okanagan Heritage Society is all about places and buildings and maintaining the integrity of the heritage of the city. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the calendar that comes out every year is going to be ready. I was just talking to Chris and Kathy Jennings, and they said that next a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, it'll be ready for sale. It's always a pleasure to see that new calendar. I've been looking through the last year's, this year's, I should say, the 2024 calendar. Very interesting, the pictures. They're not pictures you normally, well, sometimes they are, but most of the pictures in the calendar are not pictures you normally see. They're brought in by private donors and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they're just fun. And it's interesting, I was listening not too long ago on the radio, and I was listening to a gal that's been here for 5 or 6 years, and she's really, really into Kelowna, into the beautiful city, and it is but it's just fun for people that were like born here in the early 50s or 40s, even 30s. Some of the folks that are still here from the 30s, when we hear the new people talk about it, because it's great. It is a great city, and it's a great place to be. And BC is a great place. But, the old people like myself, we kind of think, oh, yeah, we've been there. We've watched it grow. We've watched it grow.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see the old pictures and see what it actually looked like. Yep. Actually, I was on YouTube the other day, and I found several old videos without sound, black and white, from way back in the 1917 or 1918.
In Kelowna?
No. Well, between here in BC, traveling from like Vancouver to some other areas. I can't remember the actual locations. But pretty amazing to see them with the old cars with the spokes, the wooden spokes, driving through the bush, and it was obviously somebody who was quite wealthy, because if they could afford a camera.
I think I saw that.
You might have seen that, and then driving through the bush,
and there's one in front, and they had the
trees. There's trees there, where they drive around the tree, and the tree's like 6-8 feet in diameter, right on the side of the road, and those are all gone now, but that was just common in those days.
What an adventure! What an adventure.
Yeah. I betcha.
Okay, we have Diana joining us this morning. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Beautiful morning.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with white flies all over my garden vegetables. Little teeny flies. I wondered if you knew what they were.
Well, they probably are actually called a white fly. The greenhouse white flies, which for years and years they only occurred in greenhouses or in tropical climates, but now they've developed hardiness where they survive the winters, and now they seem to be showing up just about everywhere. There isn't really much you can do about it, nor would you really want to do too much about it on vegetable plants, but they don't cause a huge amount of damage typically. So it's one of these things that we kind of just hope that the beneficial insect populations are high enough that you will get potentially other insects that would come in to consume those and eat them, and just keep their populations in control.
Okay.
What plants are they on, ma'am?
Oh, they're on everything around, on the peas and lettuce and just through the whole garden. Yeah, there's so many of them. You just touch the plant and they just fly all over. Yeah,
that's whitefly. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, as Ken said, the beneficials are very important to us, and that's why we plant things such as the alyssum is one that Ken's mentioned a few times.
And
white alyssum.
Yeah, white
alyssum.
Okay.
And plant that, and so create the environment that is conducive to your beneficial insects, and that'll carry it on.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know about the alyssum because I have lots, and I always have lots that comes back every year, so I'll try that.
You could potentially try like the insecticidal soaps as well, which they don't have much toxicity to humans. You just have to read the labels before you use them. Yeah. But the issue with those is when it's hot. If the weather's hot, they burn plants.
Phytotoxic. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do it early in the morning
or in the evening.
Or in the evening.
I don't think I'll try that. I'll just leave it then and. Okay. Well, thanks for your help. I just thought I'd run it by you.
Okay. Yeah, you bet.
Day.
Good luck. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I have planted some peas in my potato bins because I didn't want, we were getting potato flea beetle in our potatoes. So I thought, let's take a couple of years off and we'll go back at it again. But in our pea bins now, there was some mint growing up inside the pea bin. And interestingly enough, Donna pointed out yesterday, loaded with whitefly. I have no whitefly anywhere else in the garden, just that one thing with the mint. So instead of just pulling it and having the fly all over the place, I took a plastic bag and I trapped them immediately and then pulled the plant up in the plastic bag.
Yeah. Chop it off?
Yeah. And chop the bottom off.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, actually.
Because, those things, they fly all over the place. And it's not fun.
Well, Enhancements formosa, that was, back in the day, when I was working with you at the Burnett's Nurseries, that would have been the 80s, end of the 80s there, early 90s, and we were looking at all the new beneficials, and that was becoming a thing in those days, was being able to sell those beneficial insects to greenhouse operations, that sort of thing. And Enhancements formosa was one of the ones they were introducing, which is a tiny, tiny little wasp that infects or controls the whitefly, and it's still one of those things. I believe that they occur naturally in nature, and hopefully they do, because as the whitefly populations climb, then so does the Enhancements formosa wasp, and can help to keep those under control. When
you mention wasps to somebody, of course, the first thing they think of is the big wasps that sting everybody, and wasps, we don't want them in the garden. Well, we do. We just don't want them. In areas that we don't want them, but they are really good.
Wasps are all beneficial.
But so the big guys that sting and whatnot, they're still beneficial. It's just that they're not something a person wants to have too many of them close by. But the little tiny, teeny, weeny ones, I've got that movie of the one that goes around and stinging the aphids.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was Enhancements. It could be an Enhancements variety type. But it's so many. There's something like 3,000 different species of wasps in North America, which is amazing. That type of diversity. But some that are the size of how would you even describe that? But a 1/16 of an inch long or 1/8 of an inch long, and some of them that are 2 inches long. Including the hornets, that sort of thing. But even hornets, and they're meat eaters typically, and they'll get in and attack a lot of the bad insects, including even like the like tent caterpillars and that sort of thing. They'll go in and chew through the webbing, and they'll pull out these caterpillars and fly off with them. It's just amazing.
Unroll a leaf roller. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, they're fascinating.
Well, we're going to carry on here, and I'll tell you, Ken, right now the garden is flourishing. And one of the things that I want to tell people when we get into this heat, one of the best things you can do, and it just sounds weird in a way, but you know how we sit out in the patio sometimes, you have those little misters, those foggers?
Yep. Foggers, yeah.
Well, if you go through your hanging baskets and your tubs and that, and you get one of those dram misters that really put a fine mist out,
Fogger,
A fogger, yeah. You have to have a good hose and a good attachment, because that back pressure can be really hard on the hose. But if you have a good hose and you put that fogger on the end and just go around and just let some mist go into your plants in this heat, and you're not wasting a lot of water. No. But the plants just love that. And people, the old saying, well, you can't water on the foliage in the hot sun because it'll burn. No, no. They love it. They love having that water on the foliage, and especially in a mist form, right?
Yeah. It definitely relieves the stress. It's instant stress relief. And I've often said that, if you ever get a plant that wilts and it's looking like it's wilting, that's the first thing you do is you water the top of the plant and then do the roots later. Even though most of the roots are going to uptake the water, but the top of the plant, it gets instant relief by giving it that. We used to call it syringing, syringing the top of the plant. And it's the way to go. And but don't listen to those wives' tales. It's the plant careful. Drying out that causes the crispy leaves. Yeah. It's not the water going onto the foliage, which is actually saving its life. Yeah.
Again, we're going to take a short break. We've got our friend Dan Bruce going to say a word or two here. And right after the break, we will be back with The Garden Show after this short break. Back with you on a beautiful sunny afternoon, or good morning in the Okanagan, and it's sunny all over the place. I know it's sunny down at the coast. It's sunny in Penticton. It's sunny, just sunny, and we are enjoying it very much. Although it is going to get a little on the warm side. It's the Okanagan. We gotta just and it's BC. It's Canada. At this time of year, we enjoy the heat, and we got the heat on right now because Dan Bruce is joining us. Good morning, Dan. How are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm organized for the day. I'm going across to Fintry today because it's the Fintry's annual general meeting, and I'm told that I need to be there.
Well, there you go. You have to be there, and you got to bring those boots, don't you?
I have got them over there already, actually.
Okay, that's going to be fun.
I'm going to try and draw the attention of the government to the situation at Fintry with regard to the heritage barns. The dairy barn, it is the designated heritage building. It is the last of its kind in the province, and it is under severe attack by vandals.
Oh, no.
You would think that when a heritage building like that, in its context, is in a provincial park, that it would be getting some sort of care and attention. But such is not the case. And I would just like to gently nudge the authorities in Victoria towards fixing this situation.
Well, okay, so put a fence or security cameras.
We'd have to sit down and come up with a plan, but at the moment we're not even sitting down.
Well, it's really a terrible thing when something like that is being abused, and hopefully you can come to some kind of solution.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah. You betcha. Dan, it was fun having you at the show last week, and we did the walkabout, and your idea of putting something together next year as a Madagascar theme would be very, very cool.
I think so.
Yeah, we'll have some fun.
We'll make it happen.
Yep.
But we were talking about silk and silkworms and all that stuff. And something that a lot of people don't realize is the important role that the Canadian Railways played in the silk industry.
Oh, really?
Silk workers came from Europe and they settled on the eastern seaboard of the U.S. And the silk production was, of course, in China and Japan. And we have a problem because there's an ocean and a continent between the source and the consumer. So the deal was in the 1920s and 30s that the raw silk was baled in the Orient and shipped by steamer across the Pacific into Vancouver, where the CN and CP were fine-tuned to get this product as fast as possible to New York and that area. every possible effort was made to speed the movement of this silk. And it was done with high security and secrecy because of the value of the product. So you had these trains that were designated the silk trains, and they took priority over everything, including on one occasion Canada's Governor General.
Oh.
But the as far as I know, the record speed for a shipment of silk from Vancouver by rail to New York was 83 hours and 56 minutes.
Holy.
That's right the way across the country.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And that, I think, was 1926. Anyway, these trains, they said, went high priority. Nothing was allowed to interfere with them. Armed guards on board, and look out, we're coming through.
It's fascinating, eh?
The issue, of course, was that raw silk deteriorates quite rapidly, so you need to get it to the mills and the workers where the silk is made into fabric. But the other problem was that the insurance rates were astronomical. They were charged by the hour.
You're kidding.
So you don't want this stuff on your hands for more than a few minutes extra.
No, for sure.
But yes, it took a lot of effort and detailed planning on the part of CN and CP to deliver what they had promised. And this went on until, well, the late 30s, when the shipping switched really from the Vancouver to going through the Panama Canal. Because coming across the Pacific is pretty straightforward, but when you approach the coast of BC, to get into Vancouver, you've got to negotiate the Gulf Islands. And sometimes the silk people, all the people involved, were sitting fretting because the ship was motionless in fog somewhere in the Gulf Islands.
Ooh. Right, and there's some wicked currents out there too, isn't there?
Yes, yes, and that's not black currents either.
No.
Well, and then now it's amazing because you always just think of silk as being associated with China and not all this history that you've been telling us about in North America. It's very, very fascinating.
Well, as we said last week, it kind of gives you a bit of a different view of things when you realize that when Aboriginals in England were running around the place painted bright blue and screaming at each other, the Chinese were weaving silk.
Dan, let's leave it at that. That's pretty good thinking, boy. I'll tell you, there a lot was going on in China when everybody else was throwing rocks at each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, we'll think of some other
interesting stuff.
Things for next week.
Perfect, Dan. Take care.
I will.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye for now.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Yeah, pretty cool.
It is cool. That stuff is cool. Before before Dan came on, we were talking about certain things that were annoying to us.
Yeah.
One is, okay, we're going to talk about hoses, okay, like garden hoses, because I had an experience just 2 days ago with a garden hose, and I it's annoying. But another thing that's annoying, Ken, is when I have people come to me and say, I've got this grafted fruit tree, and it's a portion of it's dying. And I go, okay, is it one of those fruit salad trees? And yes, it was. It was a fruit salad tree. Well, grafts can take. You can make anything, well, not anything, but in the same genus, Prunus, you can make the graft take. But when you've got all the different species, that graft will reject eventually. Eventually it's going to reject because you get, Prunus avium or avium is cherry.
Right.
Prunus domestica is plum.
Yeah.
Prunus syracus is sour cherry.
Yeah.
Prunus persica is peach, nectarine. Armeniaca is apricot. So these are prunus species that will graft, but the graft eventually rejects fails.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's my kind of bone of contention. I just think, why would we want to do that? It's a marketing thing. I mean, I've been in the nursery business all my life, and I don't like to poo-poo anything, but that's one that I don't think we should see on the market.
It's not a sustainable thing, but what's interesting is even just after about 3 or 4 years, it's down to just one variety. It's whichever one
is the dominant
that actually is a match.
That's right. Or what is on the original graft down below.
Graft,
and it's often a peach. Sometimes it's a cherry, but most often it's a peach at the base there, and it comes up, and they graft all these different things into that peach. And the one thing that will last, of course, is the peach and the nectarine, because they're similar species. But the rest of them eventually reject, anyway, it's something.
Pet peeve part,
it's something to keep your eye open for, folks, on the market. Just if you're thinking of getting fancy like that, you can play around. You can take a plum, Prunus domestica, the prune plum, and put various plums on the tree. And have different kinds and different, but there is the domestica is the European plum. I forget what the Japanese plum is. It's the clingstone sweet big plum. It's a clingstone, whereas the domestica is the freestone plum, prune plum, and they're close, but still no cigar. No cigar.
You can do all those Japanese plums on one tree, and you can do all the standard domestica plums on the other tree. But even to cross those two, even though they're both very, very closely related, they still will reject over time.
That's right. Coming up very soon now, another 3 weeks or so, it's grafting time.
Yeah,
and,
bud grafting occurs in usually through the month of August here. But as soon as the bark starts to loosen up and separate a little bit from the wood, the cambium layer starts to just loosen up a little bit, makes it easy to get in there, and so we do often talk about that in the summertime. We talk about summer grafting.
My daughter has a apricot tree that is shooting up, and the whole tree died. But it's got a cluster of growth coming from the base, and I checked it out. It's coming above the graft. So we're going to train one of those babies up. But at the base of it, we're going to graft in one of her partner's apricot trees, which is a gorgeous apricot. We don't even know what kind it is, but it's a beauty. It holds up. It doesn't get the brown rot so much. It's really good. And we're going to bud graft a piece of that into one of these stems. In fact, I think I might bud graft them all, and then take the best one as it grows. And
why not? It's fun. Bud grafting is a lot easier. It's really the easiest type of grafting. Yes. Scion grafting, or that's twig grafting, is typically done early in the spring, and it's tricky at best. Like you have to be good to get those to take, and there's a bunch of issues you have to fight over to make it work. But bud grafting is easy. It's something you can try.
If anybody's interested,
if you're a plant person, you might just want to give it a go.
If it's caught your interest, just email me, ask me for my PDF on grafting and budding, and it'll tell you all about it. We're going to take a short break here now, and we'll be back with The Garden Show after this short break. Now, we love to hear from you folks. Ken and I can rap on forever on gardening. We've been doing that ever since we met in the mid-'80s. It's about what we talk about. Well, we talk some music as well, but mainly it's all about gardening. And, that business of grafted fruit trees is one of our bones of contention. But the other one is a kinky hose. Nothing bothers me more than when I'm watering and I'm halfway around the yard, I'm halfway around the house with a hose, and it kinks, 20 or 30 feet back of the hose. And I'm going like this, whipping the hose, whereas you got to go back and undo the kink. And It is a pain in the butt.
It's a total pain, and people who are gardeners, I'm sure, appreciate that. And and I haven't actually found much difference between like a $200 hose and a $50 hose. They all seem to be cheaply made. They can't seem to make the ones that will not kink. I don't think there is such a thing. Maybe I remember we were just chatting about how years ago we used to have those solid rubber hoses, and they seem to be about the best. But they can kink too. But it's just one of those things that, it's a bit of a challenge to get a hose that doesn't kink on you.
I feel like we're being hosed, Ken.
I think we are getting hosed.
Anyway, we'll chat a little bit more about that, but we've got Keith joining us. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Yeah, good morning, fellas.
Good morning.
Really enjoyed the show last week.
Oh, nice.
That display table was just something else. Just amazing, some of the displays there.
Yes, yeah, it was a great show.
Do you know which one number won it, Don?
Which
Like you had a number?
No, I know I have some of the information there. The Garden Club online will be able to tell you who won what and whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try that. Sure.
Yeah, they should have that on there. But because there were many winners, of course, I got a couple of firsts. Well, actually, I put my wife's name on them, and she got the firsts. But that's what happens, when you're entering, you're only allowed to enter in one category, one person, right? So I split it with Donna.
Some of them were just amazing.
Oh yeah, it was a great show, and what a great venue.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's a great place to be in. Yep.
I'm just going to go off the rails here a bit. Last week, I started laughing when I was listening to you and Ken. You're talking about marbles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, what the heck? And, when we were kids, and I'm just a little older than you, Don, in elementary school, we used to play marbles by the hour.
Oh, yeah. That was a big deal.
And we used to use these big, I don't know if you remember them.
Cobs.
We called them king cobs.
Cobs, yep.
You know the big ones?
Yeah, the big cobs, yeah.
And the big steelies.
Steelies, yeah. Oh, yeah. And Peonies.
And you would set it down, and people would shoot at it.
Yeah.
And if they hit it, they got it.
Yeah.
No, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And the baseball cards, too.
Yeah, I did collect. I've got a big collection of baseball cards from about 1964 when I was 14, maybe 63, I guess. And I got not the entire collection, but the problem, you say, oh, it must be worth a lot of money. It's not, because you know what? I took Scotch tape and bent the tape in half and put it on a piece of cardboard. And so now each one of the cards has got a rip on the back as a Scotch tape. They got to be. It's all about condition when it comes to those things.
Well, that's for sure. Some of them are worth a lot of money if they're in top-notch shape.
Yeah, and popular people too.
But what we used to do with those, like the marbles, we'd throw them up a card against the wall, and then the next guy would throw a card, and you might have 2 or 3 guys playing. And if you landed on a card, you get all of them.
Yeah, I never played that game, and I know my kids did. So it's interesting that if you're a little older than I am, it's interesting you were into that, because I sure didn't become aware of that until my children were in their teens and they were doing that.
Yeah. And you talk about damaging cards.
Oh yeah, they're done. Those things are done, unless there's some over the years that this was played by so and so, and that so and so became famous, and then that was his hockey card. I don't know, something like that. Anyway,
really big.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun. Yeah, and those that's what the kids were doing. Now I think what you look out in the schoolyard and they're all looking at their cell phones.
Oh, they're not playing hockey or football on the roads or nothing.
Oh, well, old people can complain about young people. They've been doing it all the time. I mean, my dad, I think, when we were listening to the Rolling Stones, who played last night in Vancouver, by the way. Anyway, when he'd hear them and hear us playing, our band playing, you could see him cringe. But, now, of course, the old boys like myself, we kind of cringe when we hear some of the stuff going on. But we won't get there because we don't want to turn anybody off. This is a gardening show, and we enjoy talking gardening. And we do appreciate your call.
Yeah, my garden's doing well this year, and I really enjoy listening to you and Ken on on the weekend.
Well,
Thank
we
you very much.
appreciate you saying that, Keith, and you take care. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye.
Keith. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing how times change and things going along. But Ken, that was it. When we had recess, the marble bags came out. And, some guys like Roy Ueda, who I was having to visit with last week, they had eagle eye, and they shot that thing like it was a dart. And they were able to hit those things in the middle. And as Keith was saying, you hit, then you get to keep the marble that you hit. I think you had to hit it out of the ring. There was a center ring there, and you had to hit it out of there. But what a cool thing, cool game. And what I get a kick out of though is the fact that when people were out there playing marbles, you were looking at corn grow in class and watching that, because corn seeds germinate and whatnot, and it got you going into gardening. And that's kind of similar to me. I would go when the kids were playing marbles after school. I had to run home and help with my dad in the greenhouse. So.
Yeah, we were always out in the wilderness all the time. That was our thing, was how to keep your kids busy. Well, get them out in the bush and let them run around out in the wilderness, and it's a great lesson. In those days, that's what we did, and we fished and camped and hiked, and it was awesome. And that was a big part of that introduction to biology and horticulture, which I love.
The Central Okanagan Heritage Society, as I said before, is more involved in maintaining some of the heritage buildings and whatnot. And I'm not sure whether they're involved with the Fintry barn, but maybe they should be, because it is very, very cool thing. But, however, Sarah Porter has just been named the new managing director at COHS. I'd like to congratulate her. She's been in town for a number of years now, and she is taking Jim Birkinshaw, who retired at the end of May in 2024. And she's been learning the ropes over the past 6 weeks, and very happy to have her with the Central Okanagan Heritage Society. Yeah. She's going to do a good job, and they do a good job maintaining some of the heritage buildings and heritage locations in the Okanagan. It's very, very important. Important
very
work.
Nice.
So congratulations, Sarah, on your appointment, and we look forward to the next few years, and we'll keep things going in that regard. The other day I was driving through Rutland and down Findlay Road and whatnot, and right in there where there's a lot of new homes, new apartments and whatnot, was where Donna's grandfather, Frank Stolz, moved. When they moved here from Saskatchewan, they moved and located there. And it was really, really interesting to see how that has all changed. The creek is still there, but no, the old house isn't there, and everything's changing. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to get down and think about the next hour of Garden Show, and we sure appreciate your calls. Give us a shout when we come back with the Garden Show after this short break. If you've got a greenhouse in the Okanagan, summer can be, render the greenhouse pretty much useless if you don't have a cooling system. You can't even shade cloth does help.
Helps,
there's no question about shade.
You got to have a cooling.
I'm telling
system,
you,
yeah.
Ken, you got to pop in and see the greenhouse right now, because I've got cucumbers growing.
Yeah,
I got 3 cucumbers growing in the greenhouse, and I got all my babies, my succulents and whatnot, all distributed on because I'm not propagating. Well, I got a small area where I'm propagating. I'm propagating some succulents and things like that. But mainly it's just display, and it's fun. It's fun right now. But, if I didn't have the cooling system, that greenhouse would be just shut down at this time of year, Yeah. We've got Linda calling in, and she is talking about the results for the best gardens of Kelowna area. Good morning, Linda. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you.
Yeah, so what do you have up your sleeve?
Pardon?
What do you have going on today?
Well, we did, I and a lot of other judges went through the best selections that we were given, and we have results.
Oh,
nice.
And do you want to put those results on air, or do you want to wait until we make them public otherwise?
Well, I did send them out the other day.
Oh, good.
So the owners of the gardens know, and everyone that was, in the selection knows. So you're the first place that we could make it public.
Oh, there
right
you go.
on. Well,
Nice.
that's fabulous. And were all the categories entered?
The tiny garden, we did not get any, so we switched that and did a curb appeal.
Oh, that sounds good. Curb appeal is always good.
And I think that one was probably the most fun to judge.
Mm-hmm. So you just stood out in the car and looked out the window and judged it from there.
Well, they did. Some of them they did by a car, and the rest they stood out on the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that was a lot of fun, and that was the first year we've done that, right?
It is the first year we've done that. And, we hope it'll go next year.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a lot of fun. Are we going to publish that in one of the papers or online somewhere? And I mean, we don't want to necessarily look at addresses or anything because that's probably not appropriate. But certainly the folks that did win the categories should be recognized.
Oh, yes. We are going to publish. We have signs to give them, and we'll make arrangements to visit them. Put the signs in the front lawns or wherever they want them and take pictures. They're definitely going into Communities in Bloom and the Miracle Grow.
Right on, yes.
The Kelowna Garden Club will do it. I will send out media releases.
That's great, and we'll talk about that on the show as well. What a great idea, and it's so great that it went over this year, and it's going to be, hopefully, it'll be expanded next year because people get excited about it. I think it's a great thing to recognize. When I go into someone's yard and whatever to help them with some issues and whatnot, I'm always amazed at some of the gardens that are, and I know that they didn't just happen. They had to be. There's a lot of energy and a lot of thinking and a lot of work gone into these gardens. And so to recognize them this way is a great thing.
Yeah, and, the judges all came back going, wow.
Yeah, I'll bet.
There wasn't a single garden they didn't go, wow, this is,
Yeah.
Which is always, like you said, you judge wherever or visit gardens wherever, and you always find something pretty exciting.
Well, it's very ties right in with the garden tours and that sort of thing. That was a great event as well. And we appreciate your efforts now. So next, we will be hearing some of the results fairly soon. You're going to publish them?
We will publish them.
We appreciate it.
Well, thank
Look
you
forward
very
to
much.
it. Well, Linda, thanks for your efforts there, and we'll go at her again next year.
Okay.
Thank you, dear.
Good.
Thanks for the call.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, what a great thing. People put a lot of effort into their garden. I know I enjoy having folks come by our garden. You put a lot of effort. Now that I'm semi-retired, I've got more time to spend on it. And not necessarily the neat and tidiness of it, but the variety and the various things. And, every year is different. Some years there's certain areas that are just fabulous, and then other areas are fabulous. It's like we used to say, we can please some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but never all of the people all of the time. And that's exactly what the garden ends up.
Well, and beauty's in the eye of the beholder too, right?
That's true.
I often say, you can go out into the garden to find weeds, or you can go out into the garden to find flowers. It's your choice. You can go out. There could be one thing blooming, and to me, that one thing is the focus, and it's outstanding. It's amazing, and there can be a weed around here or there, but I don't care. Yeah. I don't look at the weeds, or if I do, I'm just amazed at all the insect life that they're attracting. Right, and anyway, it's just interesting.
We talk about weeds. I mean, weeds are just a plant that's not wanted in a certain area. There are some domesticated plants that are weedy.
Oh, yeah.
Ken, we talked about that datura plant of mine we had years ago, the angel trumpet. And for 5, 6, 7 years, in fact, you know how long ago that was? Donna found one germinating this year.
No.
Yeah. And that was 15, 20 years ago. And we found a datura seed germinating in that spot this year.
Oh, my goodness.
We call it a seed bank. And
I'm surprised that you don't see them everywhere. I guess we don't see them right now, but in the next couple of years, they'll probably be everywhere all through the city, the same way as some of these thistles and whatnot just show up.
Well, I don't think they're going to naturalize because they do need moisture. They won't go out into the woods and whatnot. That's why we don't have the same issues here with English ivy, the heterohelix.
Yeah.
We don't have that issue where they're climbing up forest trees and whatnot and contaminating them. We don't have that issue because they freeze
die out
freeze
every 5 years.
Yeah, not only from the
frozen,
frost, but lack of water.
Yeah.
There's no water in the bush.
Yeah.
It's the same. There are some other things that are very, very aggressive, that go out of hand in certain areas, but they're not. They don't do it here. For instance, the Mexican hat plant. I forget what the botanical name is, but it's the one with all the little plantlets all along the leaf.
Kalanchoe is the family.
Is it a Kalanchoe?
Yeah.
Anyway, down there in the tropics, that is one heck of a weed. It's awful.
Oh, yeah.
Here, they can seed all they want all over the place.
But then they freeze out every winter.
The only place it's a weed is I get them in my plants in the greenhouse.
It is. It's just surprising that sometimes those seeds actually survive, which is fascinating, that they've got in those the built-in ability to survive a freezing cold winter, because I'm sure that the daturas are from a group that I don't think is, I don't actually know where they're from. Probably somewhere in Asia or something. I don't know. Well, it's a good question.
The Ipomea vine that I had, I got from my cousin Ross McLeod. He gave me some seeds a number of years ago, and I've been growing it ever since. But, oh my goodness, it's the same as that datura. Those little seedlings are coming up all over the place. We can't get rid of them.
And that's that little, it's like a ferny leaf thing.
Yeah, there's a ferny leaf one, and there's a bigger leaf one, but they both have that little tiny trumpet-shaped flower.
Yeah.
And a very pretty thing, very nice vine, and I've enjoyed it. But now they got seeds. The seedlings are coming up all over the place.
It's like morning glory, the flowering morning glory. Once you have it, typically you always have it. You don't have to replant because the seeds come back every year. That's the same family as well.
Same idea. So what's a weed? A weed is a plant that's
growing where it's not wanted. Yeah.
I mean, the goat weed. Any plant that has weed in its name may be something to steer clear of. Goat weed.
Yeah, well, but where did it get that name? Right, it can get that name from being in California. Where butterfly bushes in California are out of control, growing everywhere. But out here, they're very tame, and we lose them from time to time just because they sometimes freeze out. But such a beautiful plant, and if they live for 5 years, just think of that enjoyment. And then if you do get a cold winter and they don't make it, so you replant a new one and start over again.
Tamarisk, similar idea, and also Scotch broom.
Yeah, I did notice quite a few tamarisk plants did die over the winter. Right?
Yes,
this year.
Scotch broom is a terrible weed down at the coast, and in the Okanagan, it's not an issue.
Yeah, you see the occasional one, but not very much. Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. We do invite your calls. We love to talk to you. 250-862-2525 to get through to us locally here in Kelowna area, and 1-888-780-4273 if you're calling in from Victoria, Penticton, or anywhere online. Ken and I'll be glad to help you out with any gardening issues, and if you want to share some gardening stories with us, we're here to listen because we love gardening stories. And we'll be back with The Garden Show after this short break. Well, you hear us speak once in a while about Elaine Cameron's garden down at the Gushiken Gardens there, and I've now pulled her July 1954 page out of her diary, and lots of interesting stuff, but, she doesn't write a lot each day, but each day she writes something, and I try and do that with my greenhouse log, too. I try and so that I can look back and say, well, I did that this time of year and whatnot. Anyway, July 1st, 1954, pouring rain all day. July 2nd, tidied the house side of the rockery and cut the sunken lawn and edges. Now, when I did my walkabout at Gushiken, I showed people what the sunken lawn that she talked about is, and she talks about this quite often. She cuts it about once a week through the summer. And, of course, in those days, it was a push mower.
Yep.
And then
like a push rotary mower.
Yeah, a push, reel mower.
Reel mower.
And then in about 1962, her diary states, got a new lawn boy mower. So she took it up a notch. July 3rd, 1954, stakes to broad beans and delphiniums, picked strawberries, and Chusa dug out and other perennials cut off. Yeah, that's nice little notes. And that's what she was doing. July 3rd, 1954. July 4th, it says sun. Finished all the rockery tidying except edging on the beds and the house side. Stakes to greenhouse chrysanthemums. Those days, the chrysanthemums were very, very tall. Mm-hmm. Nowadays they've sort of inbred, like geraniums now. Geraniums used to be very tall too, but they've bred into geraniums all mounding, short, compact, which are great. But I'd like to see some of the tall ones back.
So you still need some of those old shrubs and old varieties. That's for sure.
So finished tidying all that, stakes, all garden looking lovely. Mm-hmm. She always comments, looking lovely. Mm-hmm. Crocus are lovely, earlier on. Set out the sprouts and the broccoli and the Savoy cabbage. So she's July 4th, she's putting out her Brussels sprouts, her broccoli, and her Savoy cabbage. Mm-hmm. That's something to note. Eh?
Yeah.
I guess because it's going to come to fruition in the fall.
Yeah, especially Brussels sprouts. Mm-hmm. That's I think fairly normal for them to be planted late in the spring and then harvested late in the fall. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, July 5th, picked her strawberries, stakes to 2 Michaelmas daisies. That's the fall asters. Mm-hmm. But the old fall asters used to be all tall.
Yeah.
We have the nice short varieties now.
Yeah. Just trying to remember. No, they were Angelica. What are they called? Aster. I used to grow them years ago, but I can't even remember the species. But it's they were a lot of those when they used to say Michaelmas daisy. That was a tall variety, and they were between the short ones were 3 to 4 feet high, and the tall ones were 6 feet high.
Yeah, dude, they make
amazing.
They made nice cut flowers as well.
Yeah.
Water to sprouts, etc. Tied the greenhouse chrysanthemums, cleaned part of the rockery bed, reset the heuchera and the iris and the sedum, picked sweet peas. So that was a day in 1954, July the 5th. Kind of neat.
Yeah, when she talks about resetting, that is dividing, right? That's when you have these plants that spread around. And if you don't control them by digging them up and carefully breaking them into smaller pieces and putting them back into the garden, watering them in, you reset them, and then they're good to go for another year or two. And generally 2 years, you get 2 good years out of a placement like that. But then gardeners who are gardening all the time are typically on top of that stuff. But even today, we find in a lot of gardens that the plants just spread and spread and spread and are allowed to just run around rampant. And even the gardeners, not only they don't have the time to do it, which is typical, but sometimes they don't even know that they're supposed to do it, which is kind of a sad story.
And we can get into the fact that trying to do that in gravel, rock, and landscape area doesn't work.
Does not work.
We're gonna take Sandy. Sandy's joining us. Good morning, Sandy.
Hello.
Hey.
I'm calling from Victoria, and
nice.
I'm not sure what to do about this. We have this beautiful copper beech tree that we planted a couple of years ago, and it gets infested every spring with some woolly aphid. Is that what they are? They look like little white filaments all over the
underneath the leaf. Underneath the leaf.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it looks like some of them might even be on the bark.
Yeah, a little bit.
That is common with beech. They just do that, and quite often I've noted that there's no real damage to be seen, and the only time you see it is if you really look closely and turn a leaf over and see it. Those will subside. As we talked about earlier, Ken and I, Ken brings up the fact that if you sort of leave them alone, the beneficials will come in. There's certain insects that you have to deal with, ones that will kill the plant or ruin the fruit, codling moth, things like that. But when it comes to those aphids now, even though they're not very nice to have, they will come through their cycle. And anything more on that, Ken?
Yeah, well, just with that note, as a young horticulturist, I noticed that all beech trees had this, and it was literally every type of beech tree. And they seem to get it slightly less some years, but really bad on other years. And I had a client that had one, and it was sort of in the middle of this huge lawn area, and it was a copper beech, and it was just a beautiful tree. And every year it was infested, and the homeowner didn't want to use any pesticides or anything. They were completely organic. And I just said, well, hey, we can try something, and it's just using this understanding that if we can plant plants nearby that would be attract beneficial insects, then the beneficial insects would come into those plants and then move up into the tree. And so we actually did that, and so we made a large planting at the base of the tree of the white alyssum, and that's where I first tried this technique. And this is the seeded one. You can buy the plants if you like, but the annual sweet alyssum white was the key color because that seemed to attract the wasps the best. And the wasps are tiny. These are these little tiny ones. They're about 1/8 of an inch long, but they need tiny little flowers to feed because they feed on the nectar, and then they fly up into the tree and lay eggs in the aphids, and that's how their life cycle works. And by having this massive bed of white alyssum around the base of that tree, I was able to reduce the aphid population way down. Like it was okay. Almost would wipe out the aphids just because I had this bed of alyssum. Yeah, so it worked.
Oh, I'll try that next year.
Yeah.
I've already got something under there. Mm-hmm. Can I spray it with dormant oil, or would that make a difference?
In the dormant season, that will help overwintering some of these things, overwintering aphids and things like that. But it's something, as Ken said. I don't think there's a beech tree around that doesn't have some of that woolly beech aphid that gets underneath the leaves there. And as I say, I haven't seen any. Like, they don't get sticky like the not as much. Sometimes you don't even know the thing's got it. Because normally when you look at a maple tree and it's loaded with aphids, it's just sticky, and you know right away there's aphids there.
Shiny.
But I haven't seen that shininess that much on some of these beeches. So is yours showing a shiny sheen to it?
No, it's not.
Yeah. I rarely have I seen that.
There's lots of that
flap
ooze
in the breeze, and I see the white, all the white underneath the leaves. Yeah. Some of the leaves are looking curled and dried up, but
look
not
for
all
some beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings and hoverflies and these little hoverfly larvae that are like worms. And all these beneficials are also part of the team. And that's why if you do spray with an insecticide, you wipe out all the beneficials 100%, whereas you only wipe out about 20 or 30% of the aphids. So you just can't get on top of them by spraying. I had one of my staff one day. They were at a property that had one of these beaches, and it was infested. And the client said, "Well, can you do anything?" So we went out with the air blowers, with the blowers, used for blowing off sidewalks and things, and we just blasted the tree from underneath, and we just scattered these aphids. They just flew every different direction. But what happens then is that because they only go on beech, they have to try to find their way back to the beech tree, and very difficult because they many of them don't have wings at this stage of the game. They're just walking, and they're highly susceptible to other insects and predators and just dehydrating.
When you expose them. So that's one thing that we did find that seemed to work okay, was just literally blasting them with an air blower. Yeah. And of course the old water treatment too. I've got some peppers that I got some aphids in the greenhouse, and I put them outside, and they still had the aphids on them, of course, and I put some really forceful water. Darn it, within 2 weeks, the peppers were fine. But in the greenhouse, they just the aphids proliferated just like crazy. But outside, after I shot them with cold water and got as many off as I could, those peppers are just thriving right now with no aphids. So, aphids. I
appreciate that.
Yeah, there's so many different kinds of aphids out there too, and the ones that affect beeches are a specific one. So
specific to beeches.
Yep.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have planted it, but I love it.
And those little small trees that are from the seedlings that are growing, those are sons of beeches. Okay, enough of that.
Okay, on that note.
Sandy, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Okay,
all right, good luck.
Take care. Bye-bye. And on that note, we're gonna take a short break. And at the bottom of the hour here, give us a call when we come back with more of The Garden Show after this short break. Well, one of the plants that I got a first prize for at the Garden Club Flower Show was my cardboard palm. and it's a fascinating plant. It's the leaves feel like cardboard. That's why they call it. But it's not a palm. It's not a palm. That's the problem with these common names. It's not a palm. It's Zamia. Zamia is the genus, and it's one of the cycads. And the cycads are plants that were existing during the dinosaur era. Dinosaur
conifers,
era.
Which is
they
weird.
are conifers. Yes, yes.
Which is a bizarre sort of thing that you see this weird looking plant that doesn't look anything like anything we see these days. Well, a little bit in a way. It's got like a needle like foliage on, say, the sago palm. Yeah,
same. They're cousins. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it is fascinating. It's an interesting plant. Genera, I guess, because they're all cycads.
Cycads, yeah. And the fact that some of those things have survived through the dinosaur extinction era, where that huge cloud of dust from the big asteroid or whatever the heck hit Mexico there, and that knocked off all the dinosaurs, and that was the end of that era. The cycads, some of them survived.
Yeah, and probably survived by seed, that would be the way. That's what happens with any of these things. With, when you get big explosions, you block out the sun for a few years. And then, plants don't go for that usually. So
that's right. No, they don't.
And people don't.
But the seed will last. Yeah. It's like my darned Datura seed that lasted for years and years.
15 years,
eh? 15 years, and one still came up.
That's amazing.
So the cycads were some that survived all that. And another one is the dawn redwood.
Yeah.
That one came through.
Yeah, the ginkgo is another one.
The ginkgo biloba is another one. And also, of course, the
Woolimy pine.
The woolimy pine.
Yeah.
Wollemia nobilis.
Yeah.
And it was discovered in Australia just in the late 90s. A gentleman, Noble, his name was Noble. Yeah. He was down there doing some investigation down a deep cavernous area and came across these. Folks who are interested, just Google Wollemia, Wollimia, Wollemia nobilis, and it'll tell you the fascinating story about how that was discovered and how it was only known in fossil form up until that point in time.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating, really. All these unusual species of plants, and some that have been super successful. With the ginkgo tree, it's been written, and I'm pretty sure it has no known pests or diseases. Mm-hmm. Isn't that amazing?
It is, yeah. I've got that little dwarf ginkgo, and it's always clean. Nothing
ever affects it. Nothing will eat it, and they're pretty cool.
Cool is right. In fact, the whole idea of plants and gardening and all that is good for the soul. It's good for, we're really quite happy with how the folks have taken at the tiny home community here in Kelowna. They've taken our raised garden there, and I was just visiting yesterday to take some more soil, and oh my goodness, are they having fun with that? It is just, everybody's just really involved, watching the tomatoes grow, watching the onion. They've consumed all of the radishes that went in there first, and they're all gone now. Oh, and awesome. Beans are coming up, and all sorts of stuff coming up in there. Tomatoes, cucumbers, it's
something
really,
about
really
that,
fun.
eh? Having your own little space where you can grow some food. I think it's a sort of a basic need of a lot of humans is to have that ability, and that brings to mind the salad program,
growing, living salad.
The living salad program, that was fascinating to have that and see that that's something that really helps people, that are in maybe have a hard time getting out and about, or may not have the space just to have a little bit of green.
Yeah, and more than just the fact, you're not going to eliminate having to go to Safeway.
No,
but more than that, what it is good for the soul, good for the head.
Yeah.
Even though there are some failures and some negative ends of things, most often it is a real good experience gardening, and that's what it's all about. That's what we've promoted, and that's what we've been in the business of doing all these years, gardening, and not only just and some people say, well, and I say that when I'm helping them design a garden for or a landscape, and I'll say, are you gardeners? And, everybody has a different idea of a gardener. Like when you say, are you a gardener? They think, oh, Are you an expert gardener? Are you a master gardener? Are you a gardener of vegetables? Are you a gardener of flowers? Or there's all sorts of ways you can identify a gardener. All I'm saying is, do you enjoy plants? Do you enjoy plants? I mean, if you're enjoying plants and you have a landscape, to put a bunch of landscape fabric down with a bunch of rock on top with some plants pocket planted in there, then you're not gardening. That's not gardening.
It's difficult. Yeah.
It's difficult to hoe in gravel. And it's difficult to, as we said before, when you want to reset something, it's hard to do that when you've got all that around.
Well, that's where the confusion, I guess, comes in sometimes, is that you will see those installations going in where you do have literally perennial plants in with rock and fabric, and it's noting right away in my head, every 3 to 5 years you're going to be digging them up and dividing them, putting them back. I don't think anybody really knows that. That's sort of the thing. But I know what we've had to do in the past where we were just absolutely had to do that kind of an installation was just to make sure we cut extra large sort of slices in the landscape fabric so that you knew that over time you could pull back the rock as far as you could and then pull back, open up that fabric so you made a big opening and you could get in and dig out the grass or whatever, divide it, put it back in, reset the irrigation. And irrigation alone is a challenge when it's underneath fabric, because sometimes you can't put it on top of the fabric because anything you try to spray on fabric, it just runs off to the sides, right? So, sprays don't work, and, the drip lines are a challenge. It won't work on top.
Let's walk through just a few before we take this next break, and give us a shout if you want to talk, join the conversation here, because it is a very interesting conversation. What are some of the plants that have to be divided and reset? Like some plants don't, but some have to be. If they're not, they iris. I'm thinking of iris for one thing. The flag iris.
Yeah, and some types you can't really put in an exact family. Like even irises, there are varieties that are non-aggressive, and they sort of stay clumping. You don't spread that much. But I think all perennials at some point need some sort of treatment. But the plants that come to mind, like the fall asters, not like Astrofricardia, which is one of my favorites. It rarely needs to be divided, but after about, I would say, 8 to 10 years, it would need some minor dividing.
Just get it going.
But in that case, you want more of them anyway, and you take pieces and move it around the yard because they're one of the longest blooming perennials. But other fall asters, for example, spread quite quickly and become patches, sometimes 4 feet, 5 feet in diameter, fairly quickly, and they're quite thick. They're solid. They do perform like crazy when they're that size. But at some point, you have to reduce that. They start crowding. The active gardening is often what we call plant separation. It's like, keep to yourself, buddy. You're trying to take over your neighbor. And that's what happens a lot with perennials. And so that's the gardening aspect of it. So like you say, when you have perennial flowers, in a rock and fabric situation, it works to an extent, but it's very hard to garden in those conditions.
And I think one of the big ones are grasses. And quite often the early ones like Calamagrosis, the feather reed grasses, the various varieties of that, and also some of the even the fall ones. They start dying on the inside, and they have the living part on the outside, and that outside has to be dug up, saved. Everything kind of regenerate and plunk back into the center.
Chop off the best parts and put it back in the middle. Yeah,
it's amazing what they'll do if that happens.
And that's sort of the part of the evolution of a garden. I find is that you put in shrubbery that are going to be literally left alone for the first 10 years of their life, assuming they're put in a good location where it has adequate room for the plant. And you can just leave it and let it grow, and then minor trimming and clipping out dead stuff, that sort of thing, but allow the plant to grow into its own natural shape. And then the perennials that are in between those, when it does come time for division, it's sometimes a time to also relocate, because the perennials that need treatments every, say, 4 to 5 years, whereas the shrubbery only needs treatment every 5 to 10 years, those shrubs are going to get much bigger than the perennials will, and they'll often push them out of their place where they were placed initially. So I find that those perennials are almost, to me, like the pioneer planting of that planting, because you put them in, and in 2 years they're full and blooming and looking great, and where the shrubs are still growing along and they're slowly filling in. We talk about pioneer trees in the forest. Those are the deciduous, like poplars and birches and stuff that come on really fast. And in this case, similarly, I put in shrubbery and evergreens and all that stuff into the planting, and then I'll use perennials as the pioneer planting, because they're going to be up and growing really fast. But the longevity of those is variable, and I think a lot of them you're going to just completely remove them after about maybe 5 to 10 years.
Great point. Now we want to just quickly talk to Addie. She's joining us. Good morning, Addie.
Morning, guys. Nice and hotty.
It's warm. It's warm out there in those hills.
Okay. My question is, I have a trumpet vine tree, like a tree, and it's very bare at the bottom for about 2 feet, and then it's bushy up on the top. Can I just chop that top off, because it's starting to climb my roof, and I don't think I want that.
Oh, yeah, they're quite prunable. You should see my buddy's trumpet vine up against the wall there, Carl's. It's just crazy how he prunes it back to the nubs every spring, and it just comes on.
Yeah, they bloom on new growth, and right now the buds are already getting ready to form on the tips of the shoots. So if you're going to prune it now, you can just go in and selectively remove anything that's up above where you want it to be. But just keep in mind that if we were to say, like, hedge trim the whole vine, you would have no blooms this year probably.
No, but can I do that in the fall or in the spring? When is it best for me to prune it back? I'm not going to prune it back now, because it looks like it's got a lot of buds.
In the spring, as Dawn was just saying, that's the time to do it, and you can trim them as hard as you want.
Yep.
Okay. My other question is periwinkle and wild morning glory. Who's going to win?
Well, I
That's
don't know.
a good one.
They can work hand in hand, I mean,
they're both going to win, but probably the morning glory.
Prolific. Do you think that the periwinkle will like, I keep pulling on the morning glory, and it's more prolific than the periwinkle. Yeah,
that's about all you can do, Addie, is just keep that morning glory from really doing its thing. Just keep physically pulling it, and it's not going to go away permanently by that, but at least it'll give the periwinkle a chance to take over.
Yeah, well, the periwinkle is also prolific, but like I said, the morning glory is climbing in through all my shrubs and everything, and that's where I have to go to the root and pull it out from there, which takes forever. However.
Yep.
Okay,
there you go.
Super.
Thanks, Addie. Appreciate the call. Take care. Bye-bye now. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk to James, but we got to take this short break, and we will be back with the Garden Show after this short break. And we're back to you on us. Oh, I see a cloud out there, Ken. There's a cloud floating by in a clear blue sky. James, welcome to the show. Thanks for waiting, being so patient.
No problem. Good morning, gentlemen. I have a question with onions, regarding onions. My wife has a garden, and she pulls up the odd onion, and it's mush, and there's maggots in there.
Yeah, onion maggot.
So how is that prevented? When is that prevented?
It's prevented right from the very beginning. Is use insect mesh, and you create a little dome over top of your onion patch. And so onions, there's a couple different ways we grow onions. One is that we can seed them right at the beginning of August, and we can plant them in the beginning of August and then have them over winter. And then next year they'll just grow in that spot, or you can relocate them. These maggots come in as a small fly, looks like a house fly actually, and lays its eggs on them. It's the same with spinach. You get leaf miner in it, and all these little problem insects that come in their maggot form, and they're completely prevented by having an insect screen on them. So what I do is I just have a patch for my onions, and right out of the gate in the springtime, if I'm going to grow onions, I'll put them in nice straight rows when it's still cold out. They don't mind to go out when it's cold, and at that point there's no flies around, so that gives me time to set up my hoops. I get some insect screen, which I can buy at local garden centers, or I can buy it off the internet, and just wrap it onto my frame. And that just rests lightly over the plants for the entire year. And if I want to get in, I just flip it up, and I can go in and pull a few weeds. But I can water straight through it with a hose, Or I have drip lines, like in my garden, I have the drip lines inside the bed, and then I can also water straight through it as well if I need to. So, and I get absolutely nothing. I get no aphids, I get no leaf miners, no onion maggots, none of that stuff.
And James, what you want to do right now, though, is do the housekeeping. You want to dig all your onions up and dispose of them in the green bin, or
prep them by drying them out and picking out the good ones, because they're not usually 100% infection. But you can clean them up, start drying them, curing them, because they don't grow much more through July.
Yeah.
So you're getting at that point where the longer you leave them, the more those little grubs will proliferate. And once they're finished their life cycle, that's something that you might want to. Now they're called onion maggots. You might want to just research the life cycle and see if they drop into the ground. Mm-hmm. If they drop into the ground and then come out as flies, either they overwinter in the ground as a cocoon or they overwinter as an adult fly, one or the other. And all we know is in the springtime, they're flying and laying eggs on our onions. So then that means that crop rotation may be critical, where if you had a place where you had them last year, you generally relocate to a new spot for next year and get that insect screen on them.
Okay, so once they're in the soil, can they travel from onion to onion underneath into soil?
No, not usually. Okay. They just stay in the individual onion.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, James. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, they're a son of a gun. And back in the day, of course, we had all these onion maggot products that you could put in with your, mostly contained diazinon, but also there was one that contained ethion, those were the ones. And we just sprinkle it in there, and absolutely no maggot problems at all. But we don't know what else problems that they were creating over the years.
Best to use physical barriers. That's the way to go.
We've got Maureen. Maureen, you've got just a few minutes here. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you for taking my call. It just occurred to me I have garlic in my garden. You started talking about onions. I thought, oh, my God, I got to quickly ask you about garlic. I've had garlic in there for several months, I think, and I'm not sure when to pick it. I picked 3 yesterday, or harvested 3, and the cloves, it's not like the biggest head. It's sort of medium size. I thought, is it too soon to pick it, or should I be picking them anyway?
Once the garlic foliage is starting to die on the tips and maybe portion down to the to a third of that growth on the top is brown, definitely you can dig them. I'm harvesting all my onions now, or my garlic now, simply because they're fine. They may be small in some cases, but they're fine. And the key thing is I want to be able to have some room to plant some more product for the fall. Yeah.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. Can you put anything in there, like carrots or beets?
Carrots is one, beets, I suppose. Carrots for sure. If you could get some young Brussels sprout plants, those would be absolutely perfect now. Yeah.
Okay, and I just want to give a shout out to my good friend Marilyn and my friend Dave and Victoria, who are listening to your show for the first time today. So I'm so excited. So thank you for all your help, guys. I really appreciate it.
Remember also to get the big heads of garlic you always plant at Thanksgiving, right, in the fall?
Yeah, maybe I didn't put it in quite soon enough or something. And do I dry that garlic on the table for a few days before I do anything?
Yeah, I peel them right down to the white. You let them dry out a little bit, and then I peel them right down to the white. It's worked well for me. And they
dry them for about a week.
Yep, that's right, about a week
in a shady spot, but yet warm, and keep them out of the rain.
I'll go get them out of the sun right now. Then okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
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 And welcome as listeners in Victoria. We appreciate that. So I had Dominic Ramponi, his dear wife, come by and show me this the other 2-3 years ago now. And I'm telling you, that garlic, when you do that, you keep peeling them down till they're pure white.
Yeah.
And then they will last right through the winter. Whereas if I left the skins and stuff on them, they don't seem to last nearly as well.
That's part of that, the curing process for garlic, and they're such experts. Well, they've been growing garlic for years and years and years. That's a good advice from Dominic and his
We're getting close to the end of the show, Ken, and we just want to thank folks for listening. We really appreciate that, and thank you for your calls. We always enjoy talking to you, and it's what it's all about. If, Ken and I can rap on forever about gardening, and we can just do all sorts of chit-chat, but we do appreciate your calls, appreciate your participation in the garden show, because that's really what it's all about. And we're getting right down to the end of the show here now. Appreciate you listening, appreciate you calling, and we will now start the garden tips and plants of the week. Well, my tip of the week is that clematis make a fabulous cut flower. I won a ribbon for honorable mention at the flower show with my clematis, and the darn clematis was good for 5 or 6 days after the show, even in this warm weather. Yeah. And so I'm really promoting that. If you've got clematis and you want something in the bathroom or in a small vase, cut some clematis and put that in there.
It's a good cut flower.
My plant of the week is the hydrangea. And that's as close as we've had to the same plant of the week in all these years we've been together, Ken. Both has hydrangeas, but 2 different species. Mine was the arborescens, the Annabelles, and all the different the arborescent varieties. And that's my plant tips and plants.
There you go. Well, I also have a tip and a plant. My tip of the week is that during the hot weather, remember to check your newly planted plants and give them a little extra shot of water. Even though they might be under an irrigation system of some type, generally irrigation is not super effective against these newly planted plants and keeping them from drying out too much. So just a little touch-up for the hot weather we're having here just by hand is super helpful to keep those plants alive through the hot spell. All right, my plant of the week this week is a hydrangea, and it's called the mountain hydrangea, or called Hydrangea serrata. And this whole group is a whole bunch of different types of hydrangeas that have different types of flowers. Some of them are like lace caps, and some are super colorful, but they all seem to bloom on new growth, so they tend to bloom quite reliably year after year. But they're also deer resistant, which is kind of a fun part of the hydrangea group, which many of them do get nibbled by deer, but generally this one does not, and it's a good one to try. There you go. So that's my tips and plans for this week. Remember to check growercoach.com and Grower Coach on YouTube.
And quickly, the Shago quote of the week is, if you think timing is not important, consider the fate of the person who asked the boss for a raise right before lunch, and on a Monday yet. We'll see you next week with more of The Garden Show.